fresh out the theater, I just saw Evil Dead Burn. And I think it's safe to say that Evil Dead Burn is helping to change the game for horror. They're not the only ones, but they're one of the few. What do I mean by that? Okay, let me first off start by saying that was super dope. It was, yeah, everything you heard about it is true. It's super gory. It's a great time. There's a lot going on, almost overstimulating at times. You know, it's going to give you the chills at times. It's really dark, evil, scary, everything that it's known for. But the difference between this one and the first two to me is just really watching someone get better and better and really master their craft, even though I'm not sure if they changed directors or whatever the case was with that. I got to look into that. But to me, it's more so the studio who's watching them from 1 to 2 to 3 and saying, okay, we could fine tune this, we could fine tune that. What did they do that I think is so amazing? Okay, so to put it into simple terms, I think what was really amazing was this movie, Evil Dead Burn in particular, is like surfing. What do I mean by that? You got to keep that right balance, right? A little bit too much this way and it's going crazy. A little bit too much that way. You got to find your flow, find your balance. The first Evil Dead Burn, super dope. You know, it was wild, it was crazy, cool. But this one and the second one took it up further in terms of the wittiness, the writing, such and such. The second one, to me, in my opinion, was really dope, but not better than the first one because there were a few moments where I'm like, okay, not that it's getting too silly, but it's pushing the envelope into that silly direction that I don't necessarily gravitate to. That's not really my style, but I still can appreciate the movie for what it is. Part 3, in my opinion, rode that wave I was telling you about perfectly. It's not boring in terms of just another horror movie with a bunch of jump scares and, you know, just doing the same thing over and over. But at the same time, it does get energized and it does wow you with some stuff is bizarre, but not too bizarre to where it starts pushing that envelope towards that silly area that I was talking about. And I think the main reason why this movie is one of the few that I'm gonna say is helping to change the game in horror is, let's take it back to the 90s and 2000s, right? You do a movie like this, most of the time when a movie was gonna hit you with that bizarre horror, it had to be really safe. They didn't take too many risks. They kind of played it by the book, and you know, I just feel like they kind of didn't want to delve too much into that borderline comedy, borderline just over the top, bizarre, overstimulating genre because, you know, like all things in life, you get better as you go, and some people might have tried and failed, and maybe the studios and writers were just like, we don't want to take those kinds of risks. But today, it's really different. In the 20s, I think, okay, so when the 30s hit, the 2030s, I think we're gonna look back into the 2020s at movies like Weapons, Lee Cronin's The Mummy, movies like these sets of Evil Deads, and really know that something new was born in the 20s, which was the risky genre, like the new genre of you can incorporate something that's considered almost comedy, but not safe. It's like this new genre was born, you know? When you look at Weapons, you look at Lee Cronin's The Mummy, you look at what I just saw, Evil Dead Burn, you see things in there that you're not used to seeing on that scale without it being corny. Like, I just feel like if this came out in the 2000s or even 2010s, they just didn't get the right beats, the right writing, the right moments to deliver. What do I mean by that? Okay, so I'm gonna tell you an example without overly spoiling it. There's a scene where the mom is losing her memory. Well, her whole character just, I don't know, she has dementia or Alzheimer's or whatever the case is. She's on another planet. She has no idea what's going on right in front of her, right? And without spoiling it, I'm just gonna say they lean on that at the weirdest moments that It's like you don't even think that she's about to say some bizarre, wacky stuff, and she'll say it at a moment where you were just like damn near scared to death. And so when they put it together that way, it just kind of just throws you off, but in a good way. It's done right. And this is a good lesson for a lot of writers who want to look at horror movies and write their own, how to do something bizarre or wacky or offbeat without being corny. That's the best way I could put it. It rides that wave perfectly. So definitely Evil Dead Burn is helping to change the game of horror, and I love it. I'm loving all of it. So I seen Weapons last year, and everybody was talking about how good this shit was. Now we all saw the trailer and we were like, damn, looks dope. But what about it is gonna be so different that is gonna warrant this kind of attention that you're hearing about it and the follow through? Why did Weapons work? Because of those small moments, those moments where you're fully invested in the story, you're immersed in it, there's nothing that threw you off. You want to see what happens with these characters, and you buy it. You suspended your disbelief, and now you're like, okay, this is what's going on. This is what's taking place. How are we going to survive? And at the same time, you'll see some, in Weapons, I don't know if you want to call them zombies or the undead. You'll see the undead get up and hits it with some kind of hammer or whatever. He hits it, it falls down. Then he turns around, then it gets up and he knocks it down. Then it gets up and he knocks it down. Then they overdo it brilliantly to where it's like, okay, this is becoming funny. But somehow, some way, when I was watching Weapons for the first time, I said, damn, how did they make that not corny? Because I'm laughing, but I'm still scared. That right there, I'm giving to the 2020s. That was born in the 2020s. Debate me in the comments if you think I'm bugging out. I'm not saying that it's never been done before, but I don't think it's been done like this before. Back to Evil Dead Burn. Yes, there were moments similar to Weapons where I looked at that and I was like, damn, if this concept was in the wrong hands, that could have went corny, but they did it just right, and now it's entertaining and it's funny and it's bringing me even more into the movie. And it's not just me. Everybody in the theater seems to agree because their reactions were crazy. There was a time when I heard everybody literally gasp. I don't hear that too often. Like people were really just like, yo, what the hell? And yeah, so that's why it's helping to change the game. Now, I'm going to get into another point that I think really stood out about Evil Dead Burn and why you should definitely check it out. All right, now let's talk about character development. This is a major point that I gotta make because everybody talks about how gory this movie is, how wild and grotesque and gruesome and repulsive, and it's crazy. You've never seen anything that gory and the blood. But look, here's the deal. Yes, all of that is very true, but none of that works without the proper character development. Before all of that gory stuff could even make you give a shit, it has to make you care about the characters. And that's my whole thing is this. When it comes to these characters, and this is a point that this movie to me got better than the first two. I was really invested in the story because the way that they portrayed the main character, her flaws, the way her ex-fiance or whatever he was judged her or that was his wife. That was her husband, his wife. So the way that he judged her for everything that she did and her mistakes, or not mistakes, but just her flaws, it was very realistic and relatable. And so relatable in the sense of like, you feel like you might know that person or you could believe it. It was very believable. There we go. And you watched it take its time to build up. They didn't just rush into it like, oh, it's Evil Dead. Boom, Deadeye. Oh, it's time to get to the killing. They really took their time a little bit at the beginning and built it up, not just by telling you, okay, abusive husband, but by showing you, and not just showing you how most people do it, it's the small details. And when it comes to movies, I think a lot of people pay attention to the big details, but all of the good writing is in the small details. Like that serious look somebody gives you when you're joking. the moment where they just show you that they really don't give a fuck about you. Small moments that somebody doesn't have your back when they should have your back, or little things like that. I think they did that very well. Another thing, no spoilers, but during the funeral, this girl, she's there and she's surrounded by his family who she can't stand. And no spoilers again, but there was something going on outside that was just making the vibe just like, damn, hard to get through. It's like, damn, what's really going on? And you could tell that the tension and frustration was just building up. And I guess because it was dealing with like in-laws, which seems to be a universal topic for whatever reason. I guess a lot of people say they have problems with like in-laws and stuff like, it's like mixing of family, that's the thing. And I feel like this movie really did well with making her feel relatable and alienated, to where you're like, damn, is she gonna make it through this, or why are they treating her like that? And so by the time shit started getting real and the gory stuff started happening and the violence and all this crazy stuff, I'm like, man, I really want to know how this girl is not just feeling physically, but emotionally. At what point was she gonna crack and start speaking the truth about these people to their face, or letting some of that pent up anger she had towards her ex-husband go? And when you start making me think like that, I'm super invested at that point. And so now that I'm invested in her, I want her to live so we can get through this. I really care if she gets smacked over the head with some crazy item out of nowhere and it sounds all loud and crazy and makes you jump in your chest. They're not just making you jump out of your chest, or you're not making your heart pound just because there's something to do, or because it's a physiological reaction to the sound. That's what theaters do, right? They put up these big speakers and you can see a mid-movie that's not that great, and it goes doom, and you jump and you think, okay, this movie must be good because it made me jump. Then you realize later it's trash. It's not that. You really jump not just because of the sound, but because you are terrified for this person in front of you. And so it's just a simple lesson that, you learn from good movies, right? Character development is important, even in horror. And we see now with, oh damn, while I was talking about movies earlier that's crossing that line and blending comedy with like a little bit of a satirical feel with horror, and they do it without being corny, how the hell can I forget to mention Obsession? I know everybody's talking about Obsession. I don't want to beat the same drum as everybody else, but what I will say is, yeah, it's just like how Obsession brought you to this place, got you to suspend your disbelief, still got you to laugh and get scared within a 5-minute span. That's what you can look forward to. Remember, I said it first. This genre right here is, if not born in the 2020s, it's being mastered in the 2020s. Drop a comment and let me know if I'm bugging. Like, if there's a debate to be had, let's have it in the comments, because this channel is all about discourse. All right, so let's talk about another point about Evil Dead Burn that must be spoken on loudly. So let's talk about another reason why Evil Dead Burn works. It's for the same reason that the first two worked, but I think they did take it up a level. All of the Evil Deads, if you haven't paid attention, it's really psychological, right? These people, these deadites or these spirits or whatever, once they take over the host or whoever the hell is the unlucky one that's undead at the moment, you notice they just start talking crazy, saying wild stuff about whoever's in front of them, their family. They'll look at you and be like, that's right, motherfucker. You never been shit in life, so maybe if I kill you, you'll feel better about yourself. Or, haha, motherfucker, that's why you witnessed your girlfriend burn in front of you and you couldn't do shit about it. You're gonna join her. It just says some of the most crazy, vile filth and garbage that comes out of your mouth, right? But it preys on empathy a lot of times too, because You'll put one of these undead in the room, close the door, and then all of a sudden they start crying and saying, "Oh my God, it hurts. Why are you doing that?" And somehow your body, your brain just starts feeling bad. It just starts putting you into that place of how you would really feel in real life if you heard a family member crying in the next room because they were in pain. It's like, damn, I gotta do something. I need to do something. And that brings me to my point of this movie deals with mental weakness, which a lot of people think they're mentally strong, but a lot of people are mentally weak. You're not gonna survive this movie if you're mentally weak. You know how people go like, how to survive Obsession, or how to survive The Walking Dead, how to survive Scream, or you know, those fun movies. If I had to do one about how to survive Evil Dead, I would say your number one thing is you gotta get mentally strong, because that thing is gonna test you. It's gonna test your guilt. It's gonna test your empathy. It's gonna use anything it knows about you against you. And if you fold, it'll get real bad for you. Now, again, no spoilers. One of the characters, I'm not gonna say who, started folding. And we're like, nah, come on, please don't do that. And although it's a movie, but, and you're like, damn, why would you even listen to this person and try to, you know, we witness that in real life every day. You know, I'm gonna go a little bit deeper, take a little detour, but you know when people just mentally fold because they're just on some like mental weak type of stuff, not judging anybody, you know, we all got flaws, but I'm just saying, you ever hear like a friend say something like, yo, you know, I really don't want to be in this relationship anymore with this girl, man, you know, she's taking advantage of me, she's doing this, she's doing that, and you watch them just like mentally rot year after year, and finally one year they're looking like they're about to get strong and stand up for themselves and build some barriers and some boundaries, and it looks like it's not going too good, and they're like, you know what? I'm done with this. And not that you ever want to see somebody break up with anybody, but you kind of like rooting for them, like, yeah, stand up for yourself. If she's just gonna take advantage of you for years, you deserve better than that, bro. You know that feeling? But then you know that let down feeling you get one day when they're like, oh, you know what I realized? I mean, sometimes I do get mad, but at the end of the day, she has been there for me when I needed it. I'm just thinking, you know what? We just need to just talk about it, because, you know, it's like, if you like it, I love it. I'm not a hater. I'm not here to force anybody to do anything weird. You got to make your own bed in life, right? But you know that mental weakness that you're like watching, you try not to judge, but you're like, damn, this dude is like mentally weak. You're not gonna make it if you're just gonna fold that easy. That's what the Deadites do in all of the Evil Dead. They try to get you to subdue yourself and just calm down and maybe feel a little guilty somehow, some way. That's what I love about this. I'm not saying that they invented that though. If I'm not mistaken, first time I've ever seen something like that might have been Exorcist. But I haven't seen Exorcist in a long time. But I know for a fact that's one thing that a lot of people don't talk about with this movie is how it preys on the mentally weak. And everybody in this film was mentally weak. From the first dude who died to his wife, the parents. I can't name one person in there that I was like, damn, this is the person I expect to be the strong one. They were all mentally weak. Just some of them had to adapt and get stronger, and some of them just couldn't survive. And I think once you start, you know, giving or touching on psychology in that regard, you got to hit. You know, you got to hit. This movie is so much more than I feel like people are really speaking about. They're just speaking about, oh my God, it was so hard to watch. But you know what's like that? It was still a good watch, but Lee Cronin's The Mummy, I feel like that was more so, I would say, a decent, you know, storyline going on, and I really loved the concept with, you know, the little girl, and then she was mummified and came back, you know, that was all good. But nonetheless, I do feel like that one was more shock value than you could say Evil Dead was. Now maybe towards the ending it got more popcorn, bubble gum, and stuff like that, which is fine. You know, we expect that. You don't go in there expecting an Oscar-winning movie. But what I will say, it is a little bit more than what people speak about. I do feel like people speak about the surface level stuff a lot, and they should really talk about the psychology behind this movie a little bit more. And let's get into another point. All right, and finally, this movie did one thing that I think we all can appreciate, especially when it comes to movies, right? And I think this is a problem sometimes across the board in all genres. When it comes to filler, right? Doing a movie, it has to be at least 90 minutes long. But most people want to keep you there for about 2 hours. Why? I don't know. I don't know why an hour and a half movie is looked at as less than. If you want to do a good movie, they usually want it to be about 2 hours. You can say what you want. My personal take on that is I think that's a corporate decision that's made to keep people in theaters longer because it benefits them in the movie theaters, mainly the theaters, right? I mean, why would the studios really care how long you're there as long as you bought your ticket? Maybe it's a conspiracy by the theaters. They're the ones who, the longer you're there, the more popcorn and soda and other stuff that you're likely to buy. Regardless of the fact, that whole long movie stuff sometimes gets exhausting. I know we all feel it sometimes. You know, you love a movie, but it's just like 20 minutes too long or 30 minutes too long. I feel like this movie, while I will admit I wouldn't be mad if they did shave like 15 minutes off of it, it's still good, but that's just my opinion. I do think that they made good use of the time. Every increment of 5 minutes, something important happened. I was literally running to the bathroom in that theater because I was like, damn, I gotta take a piss, man. And when I got up, I knew the minute I turn around, something is probably gonna happen. I tried to wait till one little break, and I got up, I ran to the bathroom, I came back and they were talking about something, and I didn't miss anything crazy, but I definitely missed some kind of notable detail. But it wasn't anything that I couldn't recover from. But it's one of those movies that I gotta actually recommend that, you know, hold the soda or the juice or whatever. Just not drink it, but just hold it down a little bit, cut back a little bit, because this is not the movie you're gonna want to be taking multiple bathroom trips with, because you could miss a good moment. And I know when I use the bathroom, I waited till the right moment because I was holding it because I'm like, damn, there's gonna be a good moment. And then one of my favorite moments from the trailer came on. And this is not a spoiler because you've seen the trailer. You know when the girl shows up after like the whole crazy situation in the car with the headrest thing with the head? I had to see that. I was like, if I missed that moment, might as well just walk out and book another time and start over because I'm not missing that. And I saw it and that was cool, but I gotta give them credit because one thing I can't stand in movies is filler. Filler just to keep you there for longer or just to seem like it's really deeply written or they want to just keep you there for whatever reason is a problem that needs to be addressed, is filler. But speaking of filler, you know who has the worst filler ever? TV shows. As much as TV shows have gotten better, you know, nowadays you got shows on the level of, let's say, Ozark or HBO's Task, if you ever seen that. Breaking Bad, that's kind of like older, right? But still relevant enough and recent enough. Whatever your favorite TV show is, as much as you love it, at some point you know filler is gonna come up. The Walking Dead is notorious for having all sorts of filler. I mean, sometimes you might as well just refer to them as a pillow because it's just stuffed with fucking filler. I remember certain episodes of Walking Dead, as much as I love that show, I was just sitting there like this. Because I know that you know better. I know that you know that we're bored as hell when you're writing this. I know that in those writing in those writing rooms, y'all were bored to death. I know the director was bored to death while shooting it. I know y'all were bored to death doing table reads in some of these scenes, or those, I don't know if like those moments. Matter of fact, in The Walking Dead, there was this one moment. You remember the black guy at the beginning who lost his mind and he had the son? I remember they saw him again and they just sat down in some, I don't know if it's like a bonfire in the woods somewhere, and they were just talking, and it was just the slowest thing ever. Nothing to gain, everything to lose. That kind of shit I can't tolerate. And that's one thing I don't want. Now, I would say horror is not one of the worst genres for that. I feel like you'll get more filler a lot of times, surprisingly, in those big budget movies, like, you know, those medieval times types of movies, or even a movie like Dune, which, you know, good stuff there, but sometimes they just slow things down for God knows what. You're not gonna get that, not too much of that in this one. In my opinion, you're not getting that at all. My only complaint would be that they could have chopped off a little bit towards the end. But that's just my take. I'm curious to know you guys' take. So I need you to drop a comment, share this video, like it, the whole nine. Drop a comment. Let's have some discourse, because this, again, I say it all the time. That's the whole point of this channel, is discourse, you know? As we get into this new age of technology and everybody's busy and everybody's chasing something, everybody's got a side hustle, everybody's doing this and that, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, we got to still maintain 90s level quality conversations when it comes to movies. Because at the end of the day, a movie is a moment. A movie is like 2 hours out of your time, but that conversation lives on forever. If you love a movie, you'll watch, even if you watch the movie 5 times, right? Even if you watch a movie 5 times, let me move out the way because these people driving crazy out here. I don't know what's going on. Let me just kick it over here. So you could watch a movie 5 times. The movie could be 2 hours. That's 10 hours out of your life. That conversation lives on forever. Movies, sports, any kind of spectacle in life, it's really about the conversation. Just like basketball, right? We just saw the Knicks go crazy this year. Set all sorts of records, right? That was one night. That was, they beat them in 5 games, right? They went to game 5. Those were 5 nights. But that conversation lives on forever. So that's the whole point of this page. Let's talk about these movies. Let's have a good discourse. If you disagree, drop a comment. Let me know. With that being said, I'm heading back to the theater right now. On the last minute, I decided to throw in my ticket for The Invite with Seth Rogen. They're very secretive about the plot of that movie or what it's about. But the trailer looks really good. It looks very intriguing. So with that being said, I'm out of here. Just like always, I'll see you on the next one.